thank you for joining us and welcome to Better Together Live, where we create helpful community connections when it matters most. I am Yamile, your host and the Community Relations Coordinator here at Therapy Works. And today I'm very, very happy to be joined by Saf Buxy, a human behavioral consultant, addiction therapist, a speaker, radio and talk show host, a recovered addict, and the most important, a survivor. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh, thank you.
Maybe
thank
I forgot a
you very
couple
much.
things.
Yeah, no, as long as I'm not freezing, we've got a chance, right?
We have a chance, exactly.
We
So
have-
thank you for your
no,
patience.
no, thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you for having me. It's when you asked me to come on, it was a no-brainer because anything to do with addiction or trauma or mental health or anything along those lines, this is my work, and through the tumultuousness of my life, and the
Yeah.
chaos that I've caused, um, I look at it how it served me today. How can someone go through what I went through? And I'm not into this big trauma, little trauma
Mhm.
stuff. Trauma's trauma, but how can I go through something and still be alive right now today? And I see it
You're
served me in a way
thriving.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, it's to help others, and that's the only way I can see it. So as soon as you asked me, it was a no-brainer, and straight away, it was definitely, let's do
Oh, I
this.
feel
Because
super humbled that you say yes, and I
oh,
appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, we started actually this interviews Better Together Live to show our community the resources out there. And I know you're far away, but it doesn't matter because with this technology, people can access you anytime.
Yeah,
And with mental health on the rise and also addiction, it is very, very important for us to show this. So thank you so much. And
thank you.
Saf, before I jump into all these questions, and I know you already talked a little bit about yourself, but please go ahead. The floor is yours. Is there anything else you want to share with us about yourself before I jump into the questions?
And I guess the first thing is about my book, actually.
Yes, which I'm
And
going to
I'm
get
sure
it.
that come and get it though. I think uh, many people from all different walks of life, not just people who have been entrapped in addiction or ensnared by addiction, but loved ones who have seen their family members being entrapped, I think will get value from this book. And the reason why, and it's a book, and I've got it here, and I've got it there. And
Mhm.
I'm not an author, but when I wrote this book, I put my heart in this book. It took me 2.5, 3 years to get it out there.
Wow. Yeah.
It's basically my story.
And it's a good
Um,
therapy, by the way.
well, yeah, it was. I mean, yeah, sort of, yeah. But some of the things, because there are some harrowing and traumatic events that have happened, but also, it's a good ending. It's a happy
Yeah.
ending, and because I'm here today doing the work that I do, right?
Correct.
And the book's called Out of the Madness. In fact, in hindsight, I should have called it In the Madness. But anyway, I'm out of the madness now,
You
and it's
are.
called Out of the Madness: A Message of Hope. And it's not a book as a recovery tool, but it's a book it's my story, and I wrote it in the hope to help people come through addiction, come through
Mhm.
trauma and mental health, and to show people that there is a way out. There is a way out, if you approach it in a certain way, just like I did. So I wanted to talk about this because you know what, it's probably one of the biggest achievements that I've done.
Yeah.
And the reviews and the feedback has been so great, which I'm so happy. And a lot of people who have purchased it have actually contacted me after, and we've started to
Oh,
work
wow.
together. So
Yeah.
that's testimony uh, to the message that I've been trying to give. So I wanted to get that out of the way. Some people say that at the end. I want to say it in the beginning.
I
So
love that. Why not? Thank you.
get the book, and enjoy it.
We're going to
Yeah.
get the
So,
book for sure. Thank
and
you.
10% goes to my charity as well, so that the money's going to a good cause. But
Yeah.
it's very little money for what you can get out of it, for sure.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
and I said that you're a human behavioral consultant. What does a
Yeah.
human behavioral consultant do?
Well, that's a great question. When I first came into recovery, I started researching a lot of great leaders in their field. Um, and I also studied a master's in addiction psychology, but I studied the great behavioral consultants and people like Dr. John D. Martini. Obviously, I studied the Gabor Mate in terms of the addiction side of
Mhm.
things, Bruce Lipton, Bruce Alexander. I did a lot of TJ Woodward's work, who you know very well.
Hmm.
And I put everything together, and I said to myself, this is the way to go. This is the way, because your your everyday addiction specialist, they normally have this one way of working, which I agree with. I
Hmm.
agree with, some people look at unresolved trauma, which I do as well sometimes,
Hmm.
if the client requires. But I'm more about trying to fix the problem today. I'm not a counselor, even though I'm a qualified therapist. I'm a social human behavioral
Behavior.
coach or mentor. And what I looked at is the amygdala living. I think we are all governed as people by a dopamine rush. And we're basically sold a fantasy that there is no pleasure without pain.
Hmm.
There's no happy without sad. So there is there's no positive without a negative. So there is a positive without a negative. We're sold this fantasy, this one-sided fantasy, and everyone's striving for a one-sided world. So have we frozen again? I don't know if we're frozen again. I don't.
No, you're good.
Yeah. So if people are striving for a one-sided world, you're living in a nightmare. Okay,
Hmm.
because the more you strive for one-sided world, and it works both ways. Okay, if you look at these, and I'm not here to ridicule any of these amazing
Hmm.
motivational speakers, but a lot of these speakers who do very well for themselves, all the rah rah, and it's all beautiful, it's all an entertainment, which is great, but
Hmm.
they're always talking about positive motivation, all this,
Correct.
all.
Yeah.
They never talk about the other side. Is that the more you strive for a one-sided world, you're looking for that fantasy,
Hmm.
and the more your life becomes a nightmare, because you're striving for something that is not available, and you're trying to avoid something which is unavoidable. When you're down there, when I had serious abuse, when I was, if I just looked at the negatives, it's like feeling sorry for myself. I had to look at the benefits, and people might think, well, how can you look at benefits of being sexually abused? Well, there are, because if you don't look at that, you'll
Hmm.
stay in that rut.
Yeah, and you hear sometimes, right? You need to see the dark to appreciate the light. And I don't know if that applies on what you're saying is or not.
Exactly right about you. You got to see a dart before you see a spark. But in Buddhism, they used to say, it's a famous quote, that the desire for that which is not available and the desire to avoid which is not avoidable is a source of human suffering.
Wow.
The desire of a one-sided world. Now, you're not going to get fulfillment from living in a one-sided world.
No.
Um, and where the social behavioral side comes to, I believe that everyone lives by a set of values that are important to you, and values that are not so important to you. And if we are aligned with our values and we strive for the values that are important to us, we will be inspired. We'll be motivated intrinsically, internally
Mhm.
to do that. If we have to do something, or if we do something for a reward or to avoid punishment, we might procrastinate. We may not feel that we want to do it, and we'll hold resentment. And so, what I'm trying to say is that studying social behavior, I've come to the conclusion that we shouldn't live by anyone else's values.
Values. Yeah.
We shouldn't expect anyone to live to our values. We shouldn't put anyone on a pedestal. We should never put anyone on a pit. We should put them in our hearts. And once we put it in our hearts, we can have an inspiring and fulfilling life. So I started studying social and human behavior, and I've connected that with addiction, and I brought it together,
Together.
because everything, as you know, in addiction is about connection and bonding. I don't even call it addiction anymore. I call it putting it together. I call it connection. I call it bonding. I call it oneness. So that's what a human behavioral consultant is. That's what I do. I look at high priority values. I look at omnipresent laws,
Hmm.
uh, universal laws, in particular the law of duality, the law of one and many, and I teach my clients, or guide my clients, in whether it's one-to-ones or workshops or on stage or through my book, to how to apply these laws, with my addiction tools, to have a fruitful life.
And, you know, you hear all the time that trauma causes addiction in many places. Can you
Mm.
describe a little bit what really trauma is? And is there a correlation there?
You know what?
I know it's a
Again, yeah. I
big
mean,
question, but
It's a great question, and all I can say is when I came into recovery, I did a lot of voluntary work, and I've worked in the prison service. I worked as a drug and alcohol practitioner when I first came in,
Hmm.
um, as an apprentice, in fact, uh, with serious offenders. Um, I've worked in the community. I've got my own radio show, a TV show, and I do a lot of work globally. And what I can say is that 100% of the clients that I've worked with or tried to liberate have experienced or suffered some kind of trauma. Now, it's not to say that everyone who suffers trauma, becomes an addict.
Correct.
I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that everyone that I have worked with, and including myself, have suffered some kind of trauma, and trauma comes in varying degrees.
Yeah.
People look at trauma as something serious like physical, sexual abuse, which is what I went through, but it can be something like being told that you're not good enough when you were young. It
Right.
can be a lot. It can be a loss that you've experienced when you were a young child. It can be abandonment, which of course is another thing that I experienced. So I think trauma does play a massive part in addiction.
And you think addiction is genetic? If we are exposed to an addict parent, what are the chances? Are we predisposed to be addict too or not?
Mm,
Because you have these two different groups, right? Groups that I grew up with my mother. My mother was a cigarette smoker. I never touched a cigarette in my life. But you have people that, they follow that path. What are your thoughts about this?
I studied a lot of Anna Volkov and other people, where is it? Mark Lewis, in one of my books, and they come from the brain disease model. Um, and I looked at all that, and the answer to that is, and I'm going to be honest here, I
Yes.
don't know. I,
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. What I do know, what I do know is that if we can live connected and fulfilling and happy lives, there's every chance, regardless of what your
Mm-hmm.
environment is, that you don't have to go down that same route. Now, with me personally, as an addict, I don't know my birth parents, so I can't answer it on a personal level. I know people who've grown up with addicts all their lives, like my children, who've grown up with me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they don't have. In fact, it's worked the opposite way because they've seen the chaos that I've caused. So it's actually worked the opposite with them.
Right.
But I know people who've grown up in families, and because that's all they know, that's what's around them, then they've become addicts themselves. Yes, environment does play a part for sure.
Correct.
Trauma does play a part for sure, and I'm sure genetics does as well in some ways. I'm sure it does because when you're in the womb and the mother is drinking or taking drugs, it can be it's a form of trauma that we can look at it on a cellular level, and
Right.
it's stored somewhere, not just the brain. It's stored in different organs of the body. So yeah, on that level, it can be from a genetic purpose. The actual answer to that I don't know. What I do know, whether it's genetic, whether it's environmental, or whether it's trauma, whatever it is, you can come out of addiction. That's one thing I do know. This fantasy that we're sold that it's about the chemical hooks in the drug or drink is nonsense.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd all be addicts. Yeah, we'd all be addicts. People have serious operations, like broken arms or car accidents.
Yep.
They go to the hospital and they're given diamorphine on a regular basis. I don't think any of them
So
come out
easy. They just write
as
a
a her.
prescription. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think anyone comes out as a heroin addict because that's pure morphine as well.
Mhm.
So anyone and everyone can come out of addiction, regardless of genetics, environment, or trauma,
Well,
because
that's
I
great
did.
to know. Yeah, that is great to know. Thank you. Thank you for that answer. You talk in your website, you talk about the Bugsy method. What is it?
The Buxy method, and I've since changed it, and I've got to tell my website guy I've changed it to the Buxy recovery process.
Okay.
Um, and it's basically it's basically a tool and a process that people can use not just in addiction, um, but people who are lacking in self worth, lacking in self esteem. Some people who are suffer with anxiety, guilt and shame. It's for people with all different types of mental
Mhm.
health, or people who've gone through trauma, Of course, addiction is my speciality, so I can approach that from a personal level as well. Also, mental health. So, what it is, it's my personal experience,
Mm-hmm.
my vocation, and my academic experience, and the leaders in the fields that I've researched, and I've put it all together.
Mm-hmm.
I've put it all together and made it one process. We're not talking about steps this, steps that. It's adapted to every client
Each person.
differently.
Yeah.
Each person is adapted to, and it's done in such a way. It's a process that is done with full authenticity. It's a real process. It's from a real person. It's all about it's all about connecting with the
Connect.
client, and assessing their needs and assessing what they want to do. But if they don't want to transform in any way, if they don't want to make a change, whether it's to come out of addiction or whether it's to come out, they want self-worth, and if they're not prepared to do the work, my process involves
Mm-hmm.
a lot of work by the person I'm helping. And the beautiful thing about me is because I've been there, so they can't pull the wool over my eyes.
The words, the excuses, all that. Yeah.
I know it all because I've done it
Yeah.
myself. So I know, and I will explain to the client or the family member that I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste your money. I have a 90% success rate, and I want to keep that. Not only that, but I want to make you better.
Yeah.
But you have to want to make you better first.
Right.
So the Bugsy recovery process is a process. Usually, it's for people who have tried everything else,
Mm-hmm.
or they want to go to the next level. They've done the 12-step Mr. Soto model, they've done different treatment services, and now they want to go to the next level. The people who are gifted individuals. I work with mainly gifted individuals who want to go to the next level, and continue in their recovery, continue in their journey. And these are the kind of people who come to me.
That's great. And I think you already answered the question I'm going to ask, next is like, what is the difference between the traditional approach to coaching an addict versus your approach? So it's kind of what you just said, right?
Yeah, basically, I mean,
Yeah.
the original approach for addiction, obviously, counselling is one approach, and I don't discount any other approaches. I
Yeah.
think they're
Like
all
the
great,
12
and
step and all that, you part of.
yeah, I don't. I mean, I came through the 12 steps in the
Mhm.
beginning, and it was amazing for me. It changed my life in the beginning, but then I had to look for something else. So I don't disregard anything. I put my philosophy and my creation as in addition to
To
other
that.
models.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the 12 step, by the way. We should all follow up a little bit, whether you're addict.
12, 12 steps is great. 12
It
steps
is
saved my
great.
life.
You spiritual gone white club. I'm very
Yeah.
interested about that. Can you explain a little bit what it is?
Spirituality gone wild. It's it's I'm part of I'm part of a group of people,
Mm-hmm.
who are based in California, and we have a club called Spirituality Gone Wild Untamed Club. Is that the one you're talking
Yep.
about?
Yep.
Yeah, it's such a popular. It's an online community. Um, it's to help you grow personally and spiritually. There's so much stuff on there. It's amazing. You can check it on my website, safbuxy.com. And there's free courses, extremely discounted courses. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of material. It's an amazing online community platform where we have leaders from all different, from addiction, from mental health, from healing, some of the best speakers, and they've all come onto this platform, and where they normally charge hundreds and thousands of dollars for their courses, you
Yeah.
get to do it at a very discounted price, free in some cases. But there's so much material. It's a monthly membership. I think it's less than $20 a month,
Oh wow.
but it's got everything from meditation to spirituality. I've got a course coming up on there, um, and you're getting so many people and so much knowledge in one platform for a very small price. So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So if you want to join it, guys, come on my website and go onto my link,
Yeah.
and you'll definitely get value of that for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I know you share your website again, but if somebody wants to contact you, do they go straight to your website, or do you
That's
have a
probably the best way. Yeah, yeah. Safbuxy.com. They can go to my website. They can find me on Facebook, Saf Buxy or Dr. Saf Buxy, or the Bugsy recovery process. Just Google my name, you'll find me somewhere.
Yep, I did
Um,
that a couple
yeah,
times.
it's, that's just the website there as well, safbuxy.com. So yeah, You can make any
Absolutely.
inquiries, and I'll be happy to help you. I help everyone. I've got a lot of clients in California as well. So
Thank you. Thank you so much. And as we end our time together, Saf, is there anything else you want to add to this wonderful interview? And again, I really, really appreciate your time today.
I think the biggest thing I want to say is always look at two sides of everything.
I love that.
Okay,
Yeah.
always look at two sides of everything. So many people just look at one side. It may sound, it might be okay. You might feel well looking at one side, looking at just a positive, but where there's a positive, there's a drawback, and where there's negative, there's a benefit. You can't have a predator without a prey, and you can't have a prey without a predator. Look at both sides and live by your highest priority values and stay connected, and you'll be all right.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And for us, it's very simple. Our philosophy here at Therapy Work is we are better together. Everything we do is for our community and our people. And, I know it's very hard sometimes to take the first step, but when they're ready, we're here. And if they want to learn more about us, visit mytherapyworks.com. And Saf, again, thank you so much for the wonderful, wonderful job you do to support, the community, your community, our community. And I really appreciate it.
The global
The
community.
global
Yeah.
community,
I
exactly.
think, can I give a quick shout out to my
Yes,
charity?
please.
I'm a co-founder with Dr. Tanya Simmons from Columbus, Ohio, in the USA, of a charity called was a non-profit at the moment, but soon to be charity, called Healing for the Nations.
Nice.
And and we build orphanages and provide clean water through water wells and help with education and housing and education, empowerment, food.
Yeah.
We help poverty all over the world, and we aim to continue doing that
Thank you
from
for doing that.
our hearts. So,
Thank you
thank you.
again. Thank you. And Saf, I would love to talk to you again. This is just wonderful. Yes,
Definitely.
very
Can't wait.
heartwarming.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Thank
Okay,
you.
very, very
Thank you.
nice to meet you. You be
You
good
too.
and stay well.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
your time.